It kind of feels a bit like magic, doesn't it? A beautifully integrated, futuristic smart home that just adapts to your presence, all controlled right from the palm of your hand. But what if we could actually peel back the curtain and figure out exactly how to build this environment from the ground up?
Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into the source material to see how raw code, standard electrical components, and some pretty clever data flows completely transform a space into a seamless, intelligent living environment. We're going to take those theoretical IoT concepts and show you exactly how they turn into a fully functional, real-world smart home prototype.
So here is our roadmap for the build. We'll start with the smart home brain, then move into hardware, brains, and brawn. After that, making sense of sensors, followed by real-world smart applications, and finally, we'll top the whole thing off with cloud and voice control. Let's just dive right in.
Section 1. The Smart Home Brain. Okay, so at the absolute center of our whole operation is the ESP32 microcontroller. Honestly, it's an incredible little help. It uses its GPIO pins, that's general purpose input/output, to send and receive digital signals. It manages PWM for variable power control, so things like dimming LEDs or tweaking motor speeds. And crucially, it has built-in Wi-Fi and uses the incredibly lightweight MQTT protocol to act like a traffic cop for internet data. So this one tiny chip is simultaneously managing our sensors, triggering heavy-duty relays, and talking to the cloud. Pretty cool, right?
And to really grasp how it does all this, you've got to keep this fundamental, continuous closed-loop pipeline in your head. It basically works like a digital heartbeat. Step 1. Our sensors capture the physical environment. Step 2. That data flows straight into the ESP32. Step 3. The processor actually makes a calculated decision based on the rules we gave it. Step 4. The actuators, like your lights or fans, flex their muscles and physically turn on or off. And then step 5, the cloud updates so your phone knows exactly what just happened. This whole loop, it's just constantly running in the background.
All right, Section 2, Hardware, Brains and Brawn.
Now think about this for a second. How do we keep things safe when the ESP32 only puts out a tiny 3.3-volt logic signal, but a standard light bulb needs a massive 220-volt AC load? If those two circuits ever physically touched, yeah, our microcontroller would instantly fry, no question. The optocoupler sitting right there in the middle of our relay module completely solves this by creating a physical gap that is bridged only by a beam of light. So the ESP32 turns on a tiny internal LED, a light sensor on the other side detects it, and that triggers the relay coil to physically close the high-voltage switch. It's just a brilliantly safe way to control massive power with a tiny digital whisper.
And hey, this brings us to a really critical, non-negotiable safety warning. 220-volt AC power is highly, highly dangerous. You must always use a completely separate power supply for your AC loads. Never ever connect mains voltage directly to the microcontroller or, a breadboard. That relay and that optocoupler gap, they are literally there to save your hardware and potentially you from a very bad day.
Moving right along to Section 3, Making Sense of Sensors.
So first up are the eyes of our system, the PIR motion sensor. This little dome-shaped guy detects human presence by reading sudden changes in infrared radiation. Basically, it's looking for body heat moving across its field of view. And it's actually fascinating how simple this is under the hood. It doesn't send complex data, just a binary high or low digital signal straight to the brain to say, hey, someone's here.
Next, we want to add a layer of skin to our room, and we do that using the DHT22 sensor. Now, unlike the motion sensor, the DHT22 feeds us really high-resolution data. It tracks temperature within half a degree of accuracy, plus humidity levels all over a single wired digital protocol. This is exactly what lets us establish precise, comfortable climate monitoring inside the house. Finally, we need an optic nerve, and for that we use an LDR, or light-dependent resistor. This is a brilliant little component because its electrical resistance literally drops as the room gets brighter. By reading those changes through the ESP32's analog-to-digital converter, we know exactly how much ambient light is in the room. This makes it super easy to build those smart dusk-to-dawn automations so your lights only trigger when it's actually dark, sparing you from waving your arms wildly in an already brightly lit room. We've all been there.
All right, Section 4, Real-World Smart Applications.
Okay, let's map out the actual logic for a smart lighting system. As you'll see, the ESP32 doesn't just blindly click the relay on and off every single time someone twitches. It uses software logic. A motion trigger starts at the PIR sensor and flows to the ESP32. From there, we can program a debounce to just ignore rapid accidental triggers, and we can add an auto-off timer. say 30 to 60 seconds. That ensures the relay keeps the lights on smoothly while the room is occupied, rather than flickering on and off like a bad strobe light.
Now let's look at a slightly more complex application, our smart fan logic. The ESP32 takes the high-resolution data coming from the DHT22 sensor and applies this exact table. If it's below 28 degrees, the fan stays completely off to save energy. But watch what happens between 28 and 35 degrees. We don't just slam the fan on full blast. Instead, we use PWM, or pulse width modulation, to seamlessly dial the fan's speed to a nice low setting. It's only when the room spikes above 35 degrees that the ESP32 kicks that fan into full gear and simultaneously shoots a push notification to your phone. See, it's contextual, intelligent control.
Section 5. Cloud and voice control.
Now, this right here is where the true power of the Internet of Things really shines. By using a drag-and-drop platform like Blink, or maybe an advanced setup like Home Assistant, your mobile phone can send a command from literally anywhere on the planet. That command travels over Wi-Fi, straight up to a cloud-based MQTT broker. Think of the broker like a super-efficient post office. It instantly bounces that specific message down to the exact ESP32 that's subscribed to it. The ESP32 toggles the relay, reads the new state, and then publishes a reply right back up the chain to update the UI on your screen. It is a perfectly bi-directional flow.
And while asking your smart speaker to change the temperature feels like absolute magic, pulling back the curtain reveals a beautifully simple chain reaction. You see, your spoken word is processed by the voice assistant and translated into a specific digital intent. That intent hits a webhook out on the internet, which then publishes a message to that exact same MQTT pipeline we just looked at. The ESP32 sitting in your living room receives it instantly and executes the action. It's literally just magic distilled down into pure logic.
So, wrapping up, what are the crucial takeaways from this explainer? First, optocouplers and relays are the secure physical bridge keeping your low-voltage logic completely safe from high-voltage appliances. Second, your array of sensors is what drives that continuous, localized loop of autonomous decision-making. And finally, lightweight protocols like MQTT are the absolute secret sauce granting you global remote control from a mobile app or a voice assistant.
You now have the complete architectural blueprint for a fully functioning system. You understand the processing, the power, the sensing, and the connectivity. The tools are right there in your hands. The logic is mapped out. The only limit now is your imagination. So the final question isn't just how you'll build your smart room, but what will your room actually do when it finally wakes up? Thanks for exploring this with me.